Hello there, and welcome back to Non-Name Talks.
It's great to be here. Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to cut through all that noise and get to the insights that will really matter. And let's face it, modern life, you can feel like a nonstop barrage, can it? Not just, traffic or phone alerts, but that internal stuff, the mental checklist that never ends, feeling like you're always on. If you've ever just felt totally swamped by it all, that constant buzz inside and out, and you're looking for some genuine calm, then yeah, this deep dive is definitely for you. Okay, let's unpack this a bit. What if real peace isn't about finding some perfectly silent retreat, but maybe shifting something inside us, right where we are?
That's such a great place to start because you've hit on something really common. For ages, research kind of skipped over inner peace. It
Right.
focused more on, say, happiness or what isn't mental illness. But the good news is we actually have better ways now, new frameworks and tools to really explore this state. It's something people deeply want, but often misunderstand.
Exactly. And that's what we're setting out to do today. We want to cut through the confusion, look at what inner peace actually is, figure out what gets in the way, some surprising things there, and then crucially, give you some practical, evidence-backed tools. Mindset shifts you can use to build more peace in your own life, however hectic things might feel. We get a whole stack of sources, psychological studies, practical guides, quite a mix. So let's just jump right in. What is inner peace, really? When most of us imagine peace, we tend to think of, well, quiet, right? A silent room, maybe a calm forest scene. But what if that's not quite it? I like thinking about the ocean. The surface can be completely chaotic, right? Crashing waves, storms, madness. But you go down just a little bit, and suddenly it's totally calm. Everything just moving peacefully, not bothered by the chaos up top. And here's where it gets really interesting.
It really is. Our research backs that up peace of mind doesn't actually need external quiet. That deep calm, that awareness, like the ocean depths you mentioned, it's already inside everyone. So the sources we looked at define inner peace less as an absence of activity and more as an active, engaged balance. Sometimes it's called equanimity. It's a state of mind where you're actively involved in life, in situations, but without getting constantly thrown around by your automatic reactions.
Wow, okay. Active balance. That's a huge difference. Does that mean, could someone be in the middle of a crazy busy airport or even having a really difficult conversation and still feel inner peace?
Absolutely. That's exactly it. It's definitely not passive. And just to clarify what it isn't, it's not just tranquility, which is really just the lack of external fuss. You will face challenges while being peaceful inside, and it's not simple contentment either. You can feel incomplete, maybe even a bit sad, and still hold on to that peaceful core. And it's definitely not being emotionless. Someone with inner peace feels things fully, but they aren't swept away or totally disturbed by those feelings. What the studies point to using this tool called the Inner Peace Scale, or IPS, are three main parts. First, acceptance of loss. This is about facing tough, unpleasant experiences with full acceptance, without reacting negatively. Second, transcending hedonism and materialism. This isn't about rejecting pleasure, not at all. It's about not constantly chasing more pleasure or stuff, because you understand that those good feelings are temporary, enjoying things, yes, but without that unhealthy craving. And the third one is inner balance and calmness. Basically, keeping an even keel in your mind, whether good things or bad things are happening.
Okay, so understanding that definition, this active, accepting balance, why is that so critical for your journey for the listener?
Well, I think it's because when you know what you're truly aiming for, not just silence, but this engaged, calm coal, you can stop chasing something that's maybe unattainable or not even the real goal. You can actually start building the right kind of foundation. All right, so if that's inner peace, why does it feel so darn elusive for so many of us? What are the big roadblocks? What's standing in the way?
Well, interestingly, it's often the internal noise that's more disruptive than, say, a loud street. The research really highlights this. Our minds are just naturally busy, full of thoughts, like a constant chatter. The real trap is when we try to stop them, because the more you fight the thoughts, the louder and more chaotic they often get. Real internal peace, counterintuitively, seems to come from just okaying the thoughts, just noticing them without judging them. The chatter might still be there, but it doesn't disturb you in the same way. That's wild. So my own inner commentary isn't just, background noise. It's potentially the main problem if I try to shut it up. That feels backward somehow.
It really does feel backward, but the evidence points that way. And a major driver of this internal disturbance, source after source shows, is self-conflict. This comes from feeling dissatisfied or disappointed with ourselves. We often have these really rigid ideas about how we should be, right? And we end up focusing on what we see as mistakes or parts of ourselves we just wish weren't there. That internal fight, that frustration with ourselves, that's often what we're trying to escape to find calm. And this constant battle with ourselves, this pressure, it definitely connects to wider issues we see everywhere, like accumulated stress, chronic stress from just demanding lives, high expectations. It doesn't just feel bad, it can actually harm your physical health. It makes you irritable, maybe you snap at people you care about, or just feel like hiding. And if that keeps going, it can spiral into burnout syndrome, which isn't just being tired, it's reacetosephrine. It's a deeper psychological shift from ongoing work stress. It really drains your confidence, your motivation. It often starts with being really dedicated, then reality hits, expectations aren't met, and that leads to frustration, fatigue. And eventually it can lead to just feeling totally depleted, emotionally exhausted, losing self-confidence, pulling away from others. It's a really serious state.
Yeah, and I guess if your mind is constantly fighting itself and you're super stressed, sleep must just go out the window, right?
Exactly. Insomnia is a huge consequence. And it's not just trouble falling asleep, it's waking up a lot or waking up way too early and just lying there unable to get back to sleep. And then it becomes this awful cycle, doesn't it? Stress causes insomnia, but then worrying about not sleeping makes the insomnia worse. And lack of good sleep just fuels everything else: fatigue, headaches, can't concentrate, more irritability, feeding right back into that self-conflict and stress. And one last big obstacle, something we touched on that the sources really dig into, is this trap of hedonism and materialism. Many cultures push this idea of constantly seeking pleasure, constantly consuming, but the research consistently finds that while pleasant feelings are nice, they're short-lived. And chasing them all the time can actually reduce genuine inner peace, desirable experience, just they don't last. So when getting the next pleasant thing becomes the main focus, we can lose our internal balance. We might ignore our long-term well-being or even the impact on the world around us. Inner peace really asks us to kind of wake up from that constant chase, to transcend those norms. It's about finding a contentment that isn't dependent on the next purchase or the next fleeting pleasure.
Wow. Okay, that paints a really clear picture of the noise inside and out that we're all dealing with, and why finding that calm feels so tough sometimes. But, and this is the crucial bit, if those are the hurdles, what can you, the listener, actually do? What are the specific practical steps to start building that deeper calm and balance, even when life feels chaotic?
Right. This is where we get to the hopeful part. And the absolute foundation, the starting point, is acceptance and self-honesty. The first real step to quiet that mental turmoil is accepting. Well, accepting your flaws, your past mistakes. It means being genuinely honest with yourself about how you're feeling right now and learning to accept the things you just can't change instead of pushing against them. Like one source said, what you resist persists. You have to feel it to heal it, essentially.
Accepting flaws.
Hmm.
That sounds simple, but I imagine for a lot of people that's actually really, really hard. What makes that step so tricky based on what you found?
I think the biggest hurdle is usually that inner critic, that voice telling you that you shouldn't feel a certain way or that your flaws mean you're not good enough. It's about learning to let go of that judgment just for a moment and acknowledge what is real for you without immediately trying to fix it or change it. And then a really powerful pathway the research points to again and again is mindfulness and meditation. Now, forget maybe some preconceived notions. Our sources show it's not about emptying your mind completely. It's more about actively shifting your body's whole stress response system. When you practice mindfulness, you literally move your body out of that fight or flight mode into a more relaxed state. This lowers stress hormones, slows your heart rate, and the benefits cascade. Better sleep, less chronic pain, stronger immune system, maybe even slower cellular aging. Plus, boosts in concentration and creativity.
So just paying attention differently, even for a short time, can actually start to physically change your brain and body.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
It really is quite profound. And for a way to get started with meditation, we looked at techniques like samatha. It offers a gentler approach than maybe trying to force 100% focus on the breath. It suggests putting, say, 75% of your awareness into the empty space around the breath, being open to everything: sounds, smells, thoughts passing by. And when you do get distracted, which you will, the advice is simple: recognize the distraction. Gently label it, like thinking or sound. Let go of it and gently return to the breath. It helps release that judgment. We saw randomized controlled trials where even short, consistent practice, like 11 to 21 minutes of body scans or breath meditation, made a real difference for beginners. Significant improvements in positive feelings, well-being, inner peace. And what was fascinating, self-transcendent emotions, things like deep gratitude, awe, feeling connected to something larger, seemed really key to those benefits. Oh, and a practical note from those studies: sitting meditation seemed easier for people to stick with compared to movement-based meditation, at least initially.
That's super practical advice. So even a small, consistent commitment can help. And maybe starting seated is easier for some. But beyond formal meditation, what about everyday self-care? Things we can weave into daily life to tackle the chaos.
Yes, definitely. Lots of daily practices. We can kind of group them. First, let's talk about rewiring your inner landscape. To cultivate gratitude, think beyond just writing in a journal. Try smiling, genuinely, right when you wake up. Or, here's a slightly different take. When you feel overwhelmed, try naming things you're glad aren't happening. It sounds odd, but it can really short circuit negativity. It instantly shifts your perspective. Then, for processing difficult emotions, we found a couple of really useful frameworks. One is the RAIN technique. Recognize what's going on, just name the feeling, allow it to be there, don't fight it, investigate with kindness what does this feeling need, and nourish with self-compassion. Sometimes that means talking kindly to yourself, maybe even in the third person research suggests that actually activates the brain's self-care circuits. Another one is the ACT method. Acknowledge the suffering or difficulty, connect to common humanity, remembering you're not alone in feeling this way, and talk kindly to yourself. And lastly, for this theme, really try to savor moments. This is so powerful, but we often overlook it. Fully immerse yourself in tiny positive things. That first sip of coffee, the sun on your skin, hearing someone laugh. Doing this intentionally actually helps rewire your brain for more happiness and resilience. It builds up your inner reserves.
That's so true, isn't it? We just blast past those small good moments. Okay, what about things that help protect our energy and maybe connect better with the world around us?
Exactly. Which brings us to the second theme, protecting your energy and well being. This is crucial. You need to set boundaries, learn to say no sometimes, manage expectations, yours and others. This is key for protecting your mental and emotional energy, especially against burnout. Also, limit the electronics, the social media scrolling. Constant connection keeps that always on feeling going. And fundamentally, connect with life itself. Prioritize sleep. Really aim for that 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep. Connect with people who support you. Get out in nature. Eat well. Move your body. These aren't optional extras. They're the bedrock for inner peace. And please, don't hesitate to seek support. If stress, anxiety, burnout, or insomnia feel persistent and overwhelming, reaching out to a therapist or counselor is a sign of real strength. It's effective self-care. You don't have to go it alone. Oh, and for people who lean towards creativity or reflection, the sources even pointed to a less common path, the art of literature. This means engaging with reading and writing not just for fun, but as a structured way to grow internally, using elements like exploring morality, the love of learning, creativity. It can guide you through stages like inspiration, mindfulness, integration, all feeding into happiness and inner peace. Sort of like using writing or deep reading as a tool for self-discovery and finding calm.
Wow, what a journey we've covered. We've really unpacked what inner peace is, that active, engaged balance, not just passive quiet. We've looked squarely at the internal and external noise that gets in the way. And we've explored some genuinely transformative tools and ways of thinking. The key takeaway for me is that inner peace isn't some far-off destination for a perfect life or for people who have it all figured out. It's really an active, moment-to-moment practice. It changes how you show up in your life, whatever's happening. It's about nurturing that deep, quiet place inside, like the calm beneath the ocean waves, even when the surface is rough.
Absolutely. And maybe a final thought for you to consider, to mull over. If cultivating this kind of peace means moving beyond just self-focused desires and really embracing that life, including pleasure, is impermanent, how might that shift things? Not just for your own personal well-being, but how might it actually change the way you relate to others and maybe even ripple out into the wider world?
Something definitely worth reflecting on. We really encourage you to think about these ideas and maybe just try one small thing this week. See what you notice. Thank you for diving deep with us today.